You think disrespect is accidental. It isn't. Each tolerated slight lowers your rank, exposes your nervous system, and signals you are safe to test, pressure, and dominate. Most will turn away now. They cannot handle what they have just seen. If this unsettled you, you are not ready. If it sharpened you, act. Subscribe, watch the next strike, and claim your presence. Chapter 1. Frame Collapse, the Warrior's Lens. You were trained to misunderstand the world, not by accident, by design. From childhood, you were taught that social life is cooperative, that intentions matter, that if you explain yourself clearly enough, respect will return. This belief system makes you functional, polite, and employable. It also makes you readable, and anything readable can be controlled. A warrior does not live in explanations, he lives in outcomes. The first collapse you must experience is this. Respect is not granted for being right, good, or reasonable. It is granted for being costly to disrespect. Until you accept this, every interaction you enter is already lost. Disrespect is never random, it is diagnostic. When someone cuts you off, talks over you, makes a joke at your expense, or subtly ignores your boundary, they are not expressing personality, they are running a scan. A fast, unconscious calculation. Will this man react emotionally, verbally, or not at all? Your response tells them your rank. Modern men fail this scan because they were trained to defend their identity with words. They explain, they justify, they clarify intent. Each sentence reveals need, each word leaks position. In dominance hierarchies, ancient or modern, the one who speaks to repair status has already lost it. Bushidō understood this before psychology named it. The samurai did not rush to correct disrespect because correction implies equality, and equality is only asserted by those unsure of their standing. The warrior's power came from restraint, the ability to let tension exist without relieving it through speech. Silence is not passivity. Silence is pressure unresolved. This is where your old worldview collapses. You believed calm explanations showed maturity. In reality, they show exposure. You believed reacting quickly showed strength. In reality, it shows lack of control. Control is the currency of rank. Look closely at high-status men, real ones, not loud imitations. They do not hurry to be understood. They do not chase closure. They allow ambiguity to sit in the room like a blade on the table. Others adjust themselves around it. Why? Because humans are not governed by ethics first. They are governed by threat assessment. Your nervous system is always being read. Tone, timing, stillness, posture. These speak before your mouth ever opens. When you react immediately, you tell the room you are managed by impulse. When you go silent, not frozen, not confused, but controlled, you interrupt the script. You force others to reassess. This is the warrior's lens. Every interaction is a positioning exchange. Every word is a signal. Every emotion is evidence. The collapse is painful because it strips you of comforting lies. It removes the idea that being nice protects you. It reveals that most disrespect you've experienced persisted not because you were unlucky, but because you were readable. A disciplined man is opaque. Opacity is safety. Opacity is authority. This chapter does not teach you what to do yet. That would be premature. First, you must stop seeing the world as a conversation. It is not. It is a quiet contest of nerves. Until this lens replaces your old one, any technique you learn will fail. You cannot apply warrior discipline with a civilian worldview. In the next part, the mechanism behind this will be dissected, precisely without comfort. Now that the lens has shifted, you must internalize its consequences. Your old reflexes, explaining, defending, apologizing, are not just ineffective, they are visible vulnerabilities. Each time you react emotionally, you expose neural patterns that others read instinctively. Disrespect thrives on these micro-leaks. It is a predator testing your system for weaknesses. Consider the hunter in the wild. He does not reveal himself. He watches, he waits. One twitch, one unguarded glance, one reactive step, he seizes it. Your social environment operates the same way. Every insult tolerated, every slight ignored, every unnecessary defense gives predators data. They catalog you, they rank you, and in that ranking you are already losing. The warrior does not seek validation through confrontation. He does not correct slights to restore a sense of moral balance. His assessment is strategic. What is the cost of responding? What does silence communicate? What behaviors reveal my dominance, my control, my authority? Silence is not absence of action. It is action in its most lethal form. Controlled inaction is a signal of internal authority, louder than any shouted retort. It unsettles the observer because it denies them closure, denying them power. Your nervous system, trained for social reassurance, now becomes a battlefield. Every micro-expression, every tensed jaw, every surge of adrenaline is a disclosure. The warrior's discipline is self-ownership, the ability to regulate internal signals so precisely that others cannot exploit them. This mastery is the first and most critical weapon in silencing disrespect. By adopting this lens, you are no longer a participant in petty moral exchanges. You are now an evaluator of intent, a measurer of risk, and a selector of consequence. Emotional reactions are currency spent too easily. Silence is investment. It amplifies the weight of your presence and forces others to calibrate themselves to you. Understand this clearly. Most men never perceive the battle. They think they are interacting. In reality, they are prey in constant scan, being tested in every sentence, every pause, every gesture. And you have been prey because you accepted the civilian model of interaction, linear, fair, explainable. The collapse of your old worldview is complete when you accept the following truth. Others will always test you, and the only defense is disciplined opacity. Anything less is weakness. Anything else is exposure. From this foundation, the next step, Chapter 2, will expose the hidden mechanism behind disrespect itself, revealing the precise psychological triggers your reactions feed into and how the disciplined warrior converts threat into leverage. Chapter 2, Core Psychological Mechanism. Disrespect is never personal. It is a probe, a carefully placed lever that tests the elasticity of your nerves, the speed of your impulses, the transparency of your internal state. Every human interaction is, at its core, a dominance algorithm. Your position is constantly being calculated, not by logic, not by morality, but by behavioral cues. Modern men misinterpret this. They believe that words carry authority. They believe that explanations, reason, and justification shield them from hierarchy. They do not. Words are shadows. Emotion is color. Others measure the solidity of your frame, not the eloquence of your speech. The predator, social or otherwise, reads reaction patterns before they even listen. They observe micro-tremors, the tightening of your jaw, the flick of your eye, the rhythm of your breathing. These signals betray your rank. Disrespect is not a violation, it is a sensor probing for weakness. The Bushidō lens fuses with this dark psychology. The samurai knew centuries ago, authority is internal, not granted. Status is claimed silently through control over impulse, through precision of timing, and through deliberate opacity. A single, poorly timed reaction can unravel years of perceived dominance. Silence, properly executed, is the first strike. It is a signal of costliness. Do not waste me or pay the price. Humans are hierarchical creatures. Every social environment has invisible strata, predators, allies, neutrals, subordinates, and weaklings. Disrespect is hierarchy testing, a way for those above or beside you to see if you belong, if you will flinch, if you will overreact, if you are readable. React incorrectly, and the hierarchy assigns you lower rank. React correctly, and you force recalibration. Dark psychology teaches the mechanics. Identity attack. Disrespect probes for cracks in your self-perception. If you show fragility, others feel licensed to push further. Survival logic. Every reaction is a cost-benefit signal. Impulsive defense signals risk. Silence signals control. Selection and dominance. Social predators select targets based on how readable and exploitable they are. They punish exposure. Moral inversion. Kindness is weak. Loyalty is exposure. Obedience is submission. Only controlled restraint signals threat. Bushidō translates this into discipline. Control over impulse. Act only when it imposes cost or consolidates authority. Honor over validation. Do not react to preserve ego. Act to preserve position. Inner authority. Do not seek affirmation. Radiate consequence. When these two layers combine, you understand that disrespect is both a test and a weapon. Every insult, every challenge, every slight is a variable in a predator's equation. Your value is measured in how little you reveal and how costly you are to manipulate. Most men fail this test unconsciously. They argue, they explain, they justify. Each attempt to set things right is an unintentional surrender. The disciplined warrior waits, observes, calibrates, responds only with precision. The psychological mechanism is simple but brutal. The world does not care about fairness. It cares about power, cost, and signal. Respect is not earned by virtue or effort. It is enforced by discipline, silence, and unassailable presence. By mastering this mechanism, you shift from being readable prey to being a measured threat. Your silence and calculated responses become a weapon sharper than any blade. And the first step toward wielding it is understanding the hierarchical calculus of human interaction, which is exactly what we will explore in Chapter 3 through the lens of archetypes and behavioral patterns. Understanding the mechanism is one thing, internalizing it is another. You must see how every micro-reaction you have becomes data for predators, colleagues, and rivals alike. Every twitch, every defensive word, every shift in posture communicates more than your conscious intent. Disrespect is not measured by insult, it is measured by how you respond. When someone tests you, your value is in your inertia. React too quickly, and you leak vulnerability. React with emotion, and you signal predictability. React with explanation, and you validate the test itself. The disciplined warrior disrupts this algorithm. He does not give them what they seek. Instead, he controls the tempo, letting them overcommit, overexpose, overestimate their power. Hierarchy is self-correcting. The weak will always fall because they cannot resist showing their internal state. The strong survive not because they are invulnerable, but because they manage exposure, calibrate cost, and impose consequence silently. You must adopt this as a principle. Visibility of control is dominance. Visibility of emotion is submission. The Bushidō layer enforces this with discipline. The warrior knows that timing is as important as action. There are moments to speak, and there are moments to remain immovable. Every micro-decision is guided by internal authority. By mastering this duality, dark psychology's insight into social mechanics and Bushidō's mastery of impulse, you create a presence that cannot be manipulated easily. Now consider the cost of failing. Each mismanaged interaction compounds. The weak man does not see the slow erosion of authority. Every reactive apology, every defensive argument, every attempt to set things right creates a footprint in the predator's map. These small leaks accumulate, ranking you lower and inviting repeated exploitation. The warrior anticipates this. He knows that every interaction is both test and opportunity. He does not seek to correct the world, he seeks to calibrate it. By remaining unreadable, he forces others to reveal themselves first. The first strike in silencing disrespect is therefore not action, but observation and control. By the end of this part, the mechanism should be clear. Disrespect is the probe, your response is the data, and your discipline is the weapon. The weak fail by reacting. The warrior survives and positions himself by mastering reaction or choosing to withhold it entirely. From here, Chapter 3 will translate this understanding into concrete archetypes, showing how the weak differ from the warrior and why restraint becomes the defining characteristic of dominance. Chapter 3, Archetypes and Behavioral Patterns. To survive and dominate, you must see yourself and others as archetypes, not as individuals. The civilian man, your old self, is impulsive, reactive, and predictable. The warrior is disciplined, opaque, and strategic. Recognizing these patterns is the first act of clarity. The weak archetype reacts. He argues when challenged. He explains when insulted. He apologizes when provoked. Each reaction signals exposure, vulnerability, and subordinate rank. He believes morality and fairness will protect him, but in every social environment, these illusions are irrelevant. He is prey, and he knows it too late. The warrior archetype restrains. He observes the probing behavior, measures the cost of engagement, and calibrates his response. He does not flinch at disrespect. His silence is an active weapon. It communicates that he cannot be easily read, controlled, or destabilized. Restraint is the currency of his authority. Every pause, every measured glance, every controlled exhale conveys hierarchy without uttering a word. Patterns emerge quickly when you watch closely. The passive man repeats mistakes because he seeks social approval. The reactive man escalates every slight, draining energy and inviting further attacks. The disciplined warrior filters every engagement through consequence and internal law. Humiliation and shame are tools for recognition. When the passive man sees the warrior's stillness, he feels inadequacy and frustration. This is not sympathy. This is clarity. He is shown what he cannot achieve. He is reminded of his limits. You, by contrast, internalize these patterns and let them guide your conduct. Behavioral restraint is not hesitation. It is conscious dominance. Silence is not weakness. It is a sword sheathed yet ready. When the weak man acts out of impulse, he exhausts himself and signals opportunity. When the warrior remains still, he imposes unseen cost, forcing others to act at their own risk. Observe your environments, offices, friend groups, families. Notice who reacts, who apologizes, who over-explains. Compare them to those who stand still, speak rarely, and impose consequence through presence alone. The contrast is stark. Archetypes do not lie. They reveal hierarchy as naturally as predators sense prey. Internalizing these archetypes creates a dual effect. Clarity. You can identify who is a threat, who is neutral, and who is subordinate. Identity pressure. You are forced to choose which archetype you embody, knowing that passive behavior guarantees exploitation. Discipline is your selection tool. Restraint is your signal, and understanding these patterns allows you to step into the warrior archetype fully. By doing so, you move from being readable prey to becoming an unpredictable threat, a predator among weaklings. Chapter 4 will escalate this understanding further, grounding these principles in human nature, history, and the predator-prey reality that has governed hierarchies for millennia. The existential stakes will become unavoidable, forcing the last layer of psychological pressure needed to survive and dominate. Having identified the archetypes, the weak, reactive man, and the disciplined warrior, you must now internalize how these patterns dictate every interaction. Recognition alone is not enough. You must feel the psychological pressure of your choices. Every passive impulse, every reflexive defense, every attempt to appease or explain positions you as prey. The warrior, by contrast, imposes consequence through selective engagement and deliberate opacity. Observe the weak archetype in motion. He responds immediately to slights, seeks validation when challenged, and often overcompensates with moral justifications. These are predictable patterns. They expose him not only to predators, but also to peers who silently rank him. His identity is transparent. Every interaction becomes data for others to exploit. The disciplined warrior, however, moves differently. He restrains his impulse to react. He speaks only when the cost of silence exceeds the cost of action. He calibrates every expression, micro-tremor, glance, posture, to signal authority without explanation. Restraint is not hesitation, it is a strategic weapon. Others may mistake it for indecision, but it is the sharpest demonstration of internal control. Patterns reinforce hierarchy. When a reactive man faces a disciplined warrior, his instinctual flinch, defensive argument, or apology becomes evidence of lower rank. Conversely, the warrior's stillness imposes ambiguity. Others must guess, test, and overcommit to understand him. Each misstep they make strengthens his position without a single word of confrontation. Internalizing this dichotomy forces identity pressure. You realize you cannot operate as the weak archetype without consequences. You are being forced to choose. Will you remain readable, exploitable, and weak? Or will you adopt restraint as your defining trait, reshaping your presence in every interaction? The warrior archetype demands sacrificial identity collapse. Your old patterns must die for new authority to emerge. This is where strategy meets psychology. Your interactions are no longer casual. They are calibrated maneuvers in an environment of predators and weaklings. Recognizing patterns is the first step. Mastering your own behavior to embody the warrior archetype is the second. Silence, observation, and controlled engagement are your tools. They allow you to impose hierarchy without overt conflict. By the end of this chapter, you understand, archetypes are not theoretical. They are living pressures. They dictate the flow of attention, influence, and opportunity. You now know who reacts, who flinches, and who can be controlled. The final layer, Chapter 4, will escalate this understanding by linking it to human nature, history, and the predator-prey reality, making the stakes unavoidable and forcing ultimate psychological alignment. Chapter 4, Deepening the Threat. Hierarchy is older than civilization. Disrespect is older than law. And the rules of dominance, testing, and survival are written in human nature, not in etiquette manuals. To survive, you must see yourself in the context of history, predator and prey, hunter and hunted, and recognize that civilization only masks, never removes these patterns. Throughout history, warriors, rulers, and predators have thrived not because they were morally superior, but because they understood human behavior and exploited it. Weak men, on the other hand, survived by luck, distraction, or the mercy of others, and they were forgotten when the pressure returned. Every insult you face today, every slight ignored or tolerated, is part of that continuum. You are being measured against timeless standards whether you know it or not. Disrespect is a tool predators use to gauge cost, resilience, and reaction. In every era, the pattern is the same. Those who reveal vulnerability first are hunted first. Those who act impulsively are controlled easily. Those who cling to moral justification are expendable. The warrior, conversely, conceals intent, regulates impulse, and becomes a variable others cannot predict or exploit. This is why silence, observation, and controlled engagement are not niceties. They are survival mechanisms honed by centuries of social warfare. The threat is existential because it is constant. History shows that social predators adapt, test, and probe relentlessly. Civilizations rise and fall, organizations collapse, and alliances fracture. But the predator-prey dynamic remains. Weakness is always exposed, emotional leakage is always exploited, and those who are disciplined, restrained, and strategically opaque survive and dominate. Modern society offers the illusion of safety. Manners, laws, and social norms create a veil over the predator-prey reality. But beneath the veneer, hierarchy never sleeps. Disrespect is a diagnostic probe, a small cut to see if you bleed. If you flinch, react, or over-explain, you are catalogued, ranked, and hunted. If you remain still, silent, and calculating, you become a variable they cannot manage. Understanding this truth forces a psychological shift. Every interaction carries stakes beyond the immediate. Each social environment is a battleground where your rank is constantly tested. You are not simply disrespected, you are measured. And your survival depends on seeing it, not rationalizing it. By the end of this part, the stakes are clear. The weak will always be prey. The disciplined warrior manipulates presence, controls signals, and imposes silent consequence. There is no morality, no fairness, no comfort, only control and survival. Chapter 4, Part 2 will finalize this threat, tying history, biology, and human nature into a relentless pressure that forces the viewer to confront the reality. Either you adopt discipline or you remain exposed forever. Now, we anchor the psychological threat in both history and biology. Humans are predators and prey simultaneously. Every social system, tribe, office, family, or street is an ecosystem where signals of strength or weakness determine survival. Disrespect is the probe predators use to map this ecosystem, and your reactions write your coordinates for all to see. Consider the warrior of old. Samurai, mercenaries, elite guards, they did not act out of moral superiority. They survived by mastering internal discipline. They understood that every insult, every challenge, every test of patience was a tool to assess hierarchy. A misjudged response meant injury or death. A calculated silence meant survival and dominance. Civilization may have softened the world, but the underlying patterns remain unchanged. Modern men ignore this. They cling to fairness, equity, and comfort. They argue when insulted, justify when challenged, and apologize when tested. Each action leaks information, impulse, value, fear. These micro-reactions are catalogued by those who seek advantage. Disrespect is a scalpel, and each unguarded response is an incision in your identity. The disciplined warrior turns this threat into leverage. He moves with precision, observes without revealing, and lets others expend themselves on misjudged assumptions. Silence becomes a weapon, restraint becomes armor. Those who would test you encounter a wall of unreadable authority. This is the apex of social survival, to be unprovoked, unpredictable, and unassailable without striking blindly. History is a warning and a blueprint. Great men who survived and dominated were not loud or reactive. They were measured, opaque, and calculated. Weak men, no matter how clever or moral, fell because they were readable, exploitable, and impulsive. This lesson carries directly into your modern environment. Every disrespectful act is a diagnostic probe, and every reaction is an evaluation of your rank. Now the existential stakes are clear. The world does not reward fairness, sensitivity, or explanation. It rewards discipline, control, and the ability to impose consequence silently. To tolerate disrespect, to react out of impulse, to explain oneself, is to invite continual exploitation. To embody the warrior archetype is to assert presence and control without apology or justification. By internalizing this, you understand that the threat is not hypothetical, it is constant. You are always being tested, always being measured, and always being positioned. The weak succumb, the disciplined endure. There is no middle ground. The warrior survives by mastering himself first, by controlling impulse, by wielding silence like a blade.